Okay, Debbie, you can start.
Okay, thank you. Call to order. The regular board meeting of the Governing Board of Trustees of the Romoland School District is called to order at 5:30 PM. Roll call, Mr. Reller,
Here.
Mr. Sperry,
Here.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Here.
thank you, Mr. Aguirre, and myself is here. Public comment for closed sessions. Nikki, do we have any public comments? Nikki, do we have any public comments?
Nikki, you're muted.
There it goes. No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, closed session is called at 5:31 PM to discuss public employee discipline, dismissal, release, negotiations, and superintendent goals and evaluation.
Mr. Butler, can you confirm that we're streaming already?
Yes, we are streaming. I'm just waiting for everyone to join to start the meeting back up.
Okay, thank you. And you'll have all the presentations prepared and ready?
I sure will.
Thank you.
And you'll text me, Vince?
I'll just let you know verbally since we're all
Okay,
on
thank you.
streaming anyway.
Thanks.
Okay, you can start anytime.
Okay. The regular board meeting of the Romoland School District reconvenes at 6:30 PM. Manny, was there any action in closed session? Oh, thank you. We're now going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll now read the governance norms. We agree as a board to act with dignity, respect differences, build trust, work as a team, engage the public, focus on the success of every student, and work together for the common good. Communications, Governing Board of Trustee reports. Mr. Geary. Mrs. Kleitz.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Reller.
Yes, I just want to report that over the last few weeks, I've participated in different webinars or training series on the topic of which is all over the news right now with respect to race and ethnicity. I've been to trainings with California School Board Association, the Association of California School Administrators, as well as a training organization called EPIC, all on the topic of race and ethnicity. And it is very enlightening. It gives me a different perspective because it's important for me to understand the viewpoint and the perspective of those that are communicating in public. In the protests, I want to better understand their viewpoints, and I'm starting to understand. and I want to be able to have all of the information that I can have in order to make the best decisions that I can as a board member. And I would highly recommend that maybe we take a look at potentially having a training or a webinar or something like that on the topic, because it is important as elected officials that we are receptive to our community's needs, is not only here in Romoland, but also more widespread, such as Riverside County.
Thank you, Mr. Redler. Mr. Sperry.
No comments.
I would like to add and really thank the faculty, and the administration of Romoland School District. They have been doing an amazing job and have set up the classrooms virtually for all our students. And I really, I don't comment on Facebook, but I do follow Facebook of our communities of the different schools. And they just have been so thankful of the administration and faculty's work. They have been really coming together, forming parent groups to help each other out. It's just really terrific to see all of Romoland, our district and our community coming together. And I just really want to commend everybody. I think it's really terrific. And now I'm going to call on the superintendent's report. Trevor, for your report.
I just want to thank you, Ms. Moon. I want to just make sure I didn't hear it, but I don't know if Ms. Kleitz had a comment or not, or did I miss it?
Oh, did I miss her?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I just want to make sure.
No, no comment. Thank you.
Sorry, Miss Marla.
Okay, so yeah, my comment is this. Basically, we started school last Thursday on August 6th. You know, months of preparation and changing plans as the COVID situation changed locally. School sites have been working, staff have been working tirelessly. It's been a smooth start. There's always some bumps in the road, and we've had a few of those, but as a whole, I see our district working together in a cohesive unit and being proactive in trying to problem solve issues as they develop. And we need to continue doing that. We have received a lot of positive feedback on our supports, and we need to continue that high level of support for our students and our families and for our staff as well. And we are committed to doing that. Schools will start. Some of our schools start with virtual back to school nights this week. So I'd encourage parents and guardians that may be listening to check the school's calendar on their website for their back to school nights. They're basically occurring over the next 3 weeks virtually, and you'll get pre-recorded messages from the site administration and invites and links from your students, teachers, and things of that nature, so you can find out what's going to be happening this year in their classroom. And with that, I'll end my comments for the evening.
Thank you, Trevor. We're going to move on to communications, public comments, and association reports. And we do have a public comment this evening. So I want to share that members of the audience are invited to address the board at this time on each agenda or non-agenda item. The Ralph M. Brown Act, and in accordance with the board policy 9323, limits the governing board and staff's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized matters at this time such comments are made. If appropriate, the board may direct the superintendent to follow up on topics brought up in public comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 20 minutes per topic. All requests to address the Board of Trustees must be submitted to the request of the Board of Trustees Google form prior to 4 p.m. The regular board meeting / open session is scheduled to begin at 6:30 p.m. Nikki, do you want to read the public comment?
Yes, sure. The public comment comes from a Mesa View parent, Adrian Lamoth, and it reads as such. I would like to commend the district on the teachers administering the distance learning program thus far. Ms. DeSosa and Ms. Dickey have been especially communicative and supportive. Additionally, the front office staff and the counselors at Ethan A. Chase have been especially helpful. Unfortunately, I think the district failed to plan for the immense technologically problems that should have been expected when transitioning to a full online educational program. I am particularly disappointed in the Mesa View principal, Ms. Cindy Guerrez, and the Romoland District Technology Officer, Mr. Vince Butler. I have 3 children attending school in Romoland, and I am an educator myself. My 2nd grade student was unable to connect to her class via the school-issued Chromebook due to a failed internet connection. I called the school to ask about picking up a hotspot, then went up to the school to pick it up. I was interested in how many had been issued, and the principal at Mesa View told me that it was private information. This is not true. I was asking for a general number, not personal information. She then walked away while the assistant principal continued to help me. Miss Whitney McAlpine was very professional and polite. I asked how I could schedule a meeting with the principal, and I was able to see her within a few minutes. Ms. Guerrez was rude and dismissive of my issue connecting my daughter to her class and made the point to tell me her home internet worked fine for her multiple children. I expect better from a school site leader, not because I'm a fellow educator, retired veteran, or taxpayer, but because I'm a parent who cares and took the time to inquire so that all students have equal accessibility, not just my own. This is a difficult time as we all work together to make virtual education successful. The district failed to prepare for technology issues and needs to do better. Mr. Butler still hadn't returned my phone call, and I've tried contacting the IT department several times for assistance, but haven't been able to reach anyone. The line is forwarded to the district front office. The district and the superintendent owe our students more than busy phone lines and flippant principals who are concerned with equity in education. I'd like someone from the district to contact me regarding these concerns. And that completes her comments for this evening.
Thank you, Nikki. Trevor, can we have somebody contact this gentleman, or I don't recall the name again.
That's okay, Ms. Moon. Yeah, we will follow up tomorrow on this issue and get it resolved.
Great, thank you. And no other public comments. We're going to move to employee associations reports. Do we have any association reports, Mr. Murray?
We do not.
Okay. We are now going to move on to the notice of public hearing. J1, intention to levy special taxes within the Community Facilities District number 2020-2 Country View of the Romoland School District, and to issue bond indebtedness. This is a time and place set for a duly noticed public hearing regarding the proposed formation of Community Facilities District 2020-2 Country View of the Romoland School District. I declare this public hearing open. The board has received and reviewed a special tax report regarding the proposed formation of CFD 2020-2 prepared by Copeland Gruber Public Finance, which is hereby entered into the board record of this public hearing. At this time, the Board of Trustees will receive comments on the proposed formation of CFD number 2020-2 Country View of the Romoland School District. Were there any members of the public who submitted comments regarding this matter? Nikki?
No, there were not.
Seeing no further speakers, I hereby declare the public hearing closed. Next up is information items. K1, Facilities Master Plan information. Mr. Payton, you're going to introduce this item.
I am. Thank you, Ms. Moon. As the board is aware, we've been working on our facilities needs for a couple of years in different capacities. And we've been working on an updated facilities master plan. It was last updated in 2012, I believe. And so we're excited tonight. We were planning on presenting this in the spring, but because of the school closures, we delayed it. But we have a facilities master's plan that we'll be asking the board to consider approving later in the agenda. And we're excited about not only our new facilities needs in our growing community, but also being able to incorporate a couple of other key pieces in this facilities master plan. You'll hear from Vince Butler tonight on our facilities needs as it relates to technology infrastructure, and also John Parham as in terms of our deferred maintenance planning. We want all of those things incorporated into one plan so that we can both meet our future needs as a district, but also maintain our schools and keep them to the quality that they currently are over the next few years. So with that, I will ask Shar to start from PGHM Architects. Mr. Butler, could you advance I think that's just what I talked about right there. So you could go on to the next slide. All right, Shar, I believe this is where you take off.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is my first presentation via Zoom, so bear with me. I'll try not to stumble. So Vince, will you be pulling up the presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't realize I was switching presentations here. 1 second.
Oh, it's the master plan.
Right, no problem.
This
is the one I'm,
This is the presentation.
yes.
Can you not see it, Shar?
Nope.
It is showing on the video for the meeting.
I see it.
Okay, I see it now.
So Shar, you'll just need to ask him to advance the slide when you're ready.
Okay. So what you all have received either a digital copy or a hard copy of the master plan, and the presentation's intended to highlight a few areas and just answer any questions that you might have. The first was the analysis of existing capacity at your schools. The elementary school capacity is 3,600 students. Enrollment, 2019 enrollment was at 2,800, leaving you 800 available seats. Middle school capacity, 1,500, enrollment at 1,300, and an available capacity of 200 left. Using the enrollment projections that Davis Demographics provided, and they are one of the sections, their whole report is one of the sections in the master plan. They're projecting in 7 years that there will be an increase of approximately 700 TK5 students and approximately 270 6-8 students. So what that's telling us is that schools are nearing capacity. Vince, can you go to the next slide? And this is a chart. You've seen this before. We've presented it at various times throughout the years, but this just identifies each of the school campuses, the number of permanent classrooms, the number of relocatable classrooms, inserting the current enrollment, and then capacity using the district's loading standards, and then a column of capacity using what the state's loading standards are, which those always vary, but the state loading standards is what we use when we file for funding. So that's why that capacity is there also. Any questions on capacity?
None.
Okay.
Hey, Shar. So available capacity on the prior page says 800 and 200.
Yes. So if that would be the third column from the right where I'm using the district's capacity. And then you'll see it says available capacity, Boulder Ridge 204, Harvest Valley 177, Mesa View.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
Next slide, Vince. Within the master plan, we have a section existing facility needs. And this is a section we worked with John.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I have one more quick question.
sure.
When you're highlighting the available capacity, what is the next column? How does that relate to available capacity? It says state loading standards. How does that relate?
The state loading standards, when we file the forms with the state to participate in the school facility program, they determine your capacity based on general loading standards of 25 for elementary and 27 for middle school. So that column, it's really there for our use as we're applying for state money.
But it looks like even to our standards, we have more kids than what the state has capacity.
That's correct, because
Okay.
your loading standards are 24 to 1 at TK, 25 to 1 K3, 30 to 1 in 4 through 8. So you are able to seat more students than if you were using the district's standard loadings.
Right. And that's good.
Yes, yes. So part of the process of the master plan was identifying needs at all of the existing campuses. And in your master plan, this is section 7. And looking at each campus, including technology and including deferred maintenance, and also including the estimated costs for the new Monument Ranch School. We're showing that there's a district-wide need of about $53 million to make existing school site improvements, construct Monument Ranch, and continue with your deferred maintenance and your technology upgrades each year. Next slide. This is a chart of the summary of what was identified at each campus. And then following this chart will be a schedule for, it'll be technology and deferred maintenance. So I'll let Vince and John talk about theirs. And then to go with all of this, we have just very clear, simple site plans that identify areas on each campus that would be receiving the improvements identified here in this chart. So next slide.
All right, thank you, Shar. Sounds like I'm up. So just as we have a refresh plan for updating our student devices and our teacher devices every year, we also want to make sure we've got a plan for how we're keeping up to date with the technology that's a part of our school facilities. So what you see here is broken down by school, those types of technology items that are more or less attached to the school. Things like network cabling, the network equipment, wireless equipment that provides the capability for our teachers and student devices to access the internet and network applications. The phone systems that we use at our schools for communication purposes, as well as our interactive classroom technology. So in the past, that has been the projectors that we've physically mounted into our classrooms. And moving forward, that could be different types of technology to support that same kind of use, such as a large format display or an interactive display in a classroom. So you can see here on this chart, we've made note of when those items were last completed. Network cabling, we kind of had to do a little investigation on that one. A lot of that hadn't been done since the school was built. And based on industry best, kind of recommendations, we've noted when those items should be replaced. Although quite honestly, we have increased those numbers a little bit based on what our experience has been with these types of areas, not so much, what an industry best practices, which is always the kind of best case. If money is no object, you should replace that more often. Obviously, this is something we're going to adjust based on our actual need and projection for how things are going, rather than just blindly following what, everyone who wants our money says that we should be doing. So you can also see here notes on certain items that are E-rate eligible, and that's a funding mechanism that we've been able to leverage here in the district for the network equipment, wireless equipment projects that we've done just since I've been in the district, and that has been a tremendous help. So obviously, as long as that is a program that continues to be offered by the federal government, that's something we'll continue to utilize for these projects, because that has been able to take 80 to 90% off the cost of these projects to the district. So may I answer any questions about the technology items of this plan? Okay, then I will move on and pass the baton to Mr. Parham.
Good evening, everybody. So what we did is we just went through the needs of the district, and what I've been trying to do is come up with a schedule to get us on for all of our deferred maintenance on a regular schedule. So for example, the first thing you're looking at as far as the painting of the existing buildings, when we have 5 sites right now, hopefully 6 soon, I'm going to start working on those this current year. So as you can see, like Harvest Valley and the district, basically it's the district support facilities will be the district office. Since we completed that project, I want to go ahead and try to take care of the DO, get the few things we have remaining on the existing district office taken care of this year, and then every year after that. So it's going to basically be a cycle, that we're going to do with, the painting, carpet, HVAC. We just did the Romoland modernization. Everything was replaced there, and it's new. 18-19 year, I did probably 80% of Harvest Valley, so we're in pretty good shape there. Mesa View and Chase are still fairly new, and Boulder Ridge. So that's going to be on an as-needed basis. This summer, we've had quite a few things that we've had to take care of on that, but so far so good. Roofing, same thing. It's about a 20-year deal. Romoland was in the worst shape. We just took care of that during the modernization, and then right after that, or almost simultaneously, I got Harvest Valley taken care of. So when we get back over to Boulder, Mesa View, and Chase, it's going to be, there's a lot of metal roofing and stuff. So, the longevity of it's a little bit better. So for this year right now, the 2021, I have basically, scheduled for Harvest Valley, the DO, for the painting. And then the DO, we're going to re-roof the existing building, and then I'm going to slurry seal a couple of sites, and then that's a 5 to 7 year deal also. So once a year, typically in the summer, I'm going to start going through these, and it's just going to be a continuous basis like that, so we can get caught up. I've been playing a little bit of catch up, but I think we're in pretty good shape now. And then the last item is landscape planning, and that's I do site walks with our landscape contractor. Typically monthly, we go through, or on an as-needed basis. If I see something or if somebody else sees something and they shoot me an email or whatever, then I make sure it's taken care of. So right now we're on track. We're in pretty good shape on procuring bids and everything to get going on the slurry and striping, and the exterior painting. We'll probably end up going out to public bid. It all depends on the estimates, but we're looking good so far.
Can I just add one little thing on this, is that the board earlier, for years past, really, we had a plan to get our existing facilities up to par with all of our facilities. So we kind of had equitable facilities, and we worked on it for several years, and we feel like this summer we kind of finally got that caught up. And so now it becomes a system of making sure we're maintaining them so that they don't fall in disrepair. And that's what I like about this plan, and also the technology plan, because, that infrastructure is something that people take for the technology infrastructure, for instance, is something that people can take for granted when it's working, but they sure notice when it's not working. And I think there are districts around that are experiencing that now with the challenges of of virtual and distance learning right now. So both of those things become really important for us to stay where we need to be as a district. And I appreciate Mr. Butler and Mr. Parham's efforts on these plans. And I'll stop.
Anybody have any questions?
I just wanted, John, didn't the state used to help pay for our facility repairs, right? And they eliminated funding. Has it been 3 or 4 years now? So we have to set the funds aside to make sure that we can maintain all our schools. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, they used to have a thing. I mean, it was almost like you were in line for it, and then when they would come up with a batch of money, then they would hand it out. But right now, on the deferred maintenance, out of my budget, I'm going to try to put X amount of dollars every year into a separate fund, just for emergency type things. But hopefully, with the budget, if it keeps going the way it's been, then I'm going to be able to maintain. It was a little tough catching up, bridging the gap, like Mr. Payton said. But I think we're in pretty good shape. And the last 2 years, we've got it pretty well caught up to where now it's more of a maintenance thing. We're not going to have some of the really big hits like we've had the last couple of years.
Great. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, John, thank you for your work in getting us caught up. But I recall back in 2008, I think it was, is when, the budget for the state of California, we were in a budget crisis. And, and that's when our district budgets went south very fast. And the first thing we took away from was, deferred maintenance.
Yes, sir.
And money to keep the school sites up. And now you're saying that we're back up to, in a good place. If we continue with the plan, we're going to be able to maintain our facilities. And in the long run, I would say and argue that this is going to save us some money.
Yes, sir.
So I think it's important for us to, as a board, is we really need to pay very close attention to what John's saying and greatly reduce the impact that our future budget crisis is going to have on maintenance, because we're going to have it. That budget crisis is going to be, I think, going to be worse than 2008. So I would like to commit to doing our best and arguing about every point to keep our maintenance and operations funding and deferred maintenance funding as high as we can to make it through these upcoming years that are going to be devastating.
I would add that I think in the Great Recession, we're required by law to set aside 3% of our budget for deferred maintenance. And in the last recession, the state gave flexibility to districts because the burden was so great that they didn't have to do that because they needed to keep their schools operational in terms of students. And so, whenever that next kind of budget challenge hits us in California, unless the state were to give us flexibility again, we would still be required to set aside 3% for our deferred maintenance plan. And that's a good thing, because I do agree, Mr. Reller, that maintaining your facilities is always more affordable if you can do it than having to get them caught up in the long run. So
would you say that our 3% projection of set aside is going to maintain our deferred maintenance program, John?
With the budget that I currently have this year, I'm able to take care of everything like you see that's listed. So, I mean, I believe so. I'm pretty diligent when it comes to pricing, and I definitely make sure we get the best bang for the buck. But I believe we should be okay
For the next 3 years, because we have a projected budget for the next 3 years. Does it align? If everything remains the same, you're going to be able to cover what you need?
Showing what I have right here, yes, sir. I think that we should be okay. I mean, you're definitely going to have different increases and stuff like that. We factored those in, but I do believe right now that we're okay.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think we're going back to Shar now.
Yep.
These are, Shar, are you supposed to talk to these? Excuse me. I'm not sure if it's Shar or John.
I can. we don't need to spend a lot of time on each of them. I just wanted to show you the graphics that support the table. So when you're looking at that schedule and at Ethan A. Chase, we've got a line item that's $250,000 for site work. When you look at this graphic, it shows you what that site work is, where it's field drainage improvements. So this is just, we don't have to spend a lot of time, but it's a tool to use when you're looking at the chart graphically to see where the areas are that the work is being done in. What I didn't include in this presentation, but is in your booklet, then beyond this graphic, there's a cost breakdown for each of the items that are indicated there that show you how we get to the total shown on the graphic. So I think we can just click through
Go through all the schools. We don't need to stop at each one.
No, it's just, yeah, if you have specific questions about one, but otherwise it was just to show you how to use the tool. And then moving on, our next section is residential development and the tracking of that, which is so important. And the work that Carolyn and I and other members of the team have been doing to really try to stay on top of the developments coming in, early conversations with the developer. As you know, you deal with 3 local planning agencies, County of Riverside, the City of Menifee, and the City of Paris. So making contacts with each of those agencies to ensure that the district is notified when a new developer is coming in and that you're getting the tentative track maps so that you can review them early on. And after 2008, that kind of slowed down a bit. So we've been working hard to get our arms back around and redevelop the relationships with these agencies. But what we've identified right now is there's approximately 10,000 new homes in various phases of planning and approval. And of those 10,000, there's about 2,700 that have been identified to be constructed in the next 7 years. So within the plan, there's a living spreadsheet. And each year when we present this plan to you, it'll be a snapshot in time, but it's really a tool that that we'll be using to update almost daily, depending on what's going on. And then if you will remember the large development map that we've brought to the board meetings. Vince, I think I've got that in here. Can you click to the next slide? So this map graphically depicts where the developments are. And I think it's a really helpful tool. I know Carol keeps the map in her office and it's a nice visual, but we keep a detailed spreadsheet. We work with the GIS company to graphically depict those for us, and then we're able to see where developments are as we're moving forward. Any questions on the tracking of development? I think we can move to the next slide, Vince. Financing of new school facilities. Within the plan, there is a section that describes all the various financing mechanisms, and we've presented that to you throughout the years. But the current available funding sources that the district has right now is approximately $8.9 million in developer fees. There is $2.1 million that we're waiting for from the state, from the school facilities program, which is for the Romoland modernization. When you receive that, those funds will be placed in Fund 35. And then CFD's estimated projections in the next 5 years is at about $25 million. Next slide, Vince. Oh, final thoughts. Trevor, do you want to take the final thoughts?
You're muted, Trevor.
Thanks, Miss Moon. I knew I'd do that sometime before the meeting ended. I think when we drive around the district every day, we understand that we're a rapidly growing district, and it's a good problem to have. Being a growing district is a good problem because when you're declining enrollment, you have a whole different set of challenges that are presented. But this master plan becomes very important, maybe even more so in the past, depending upon how fast these developments actually start to pop up, which is a variable depending on the housing market and the economy and things. But our plan is to bring this back to the board on an annual basis with any adjustments and updates for a formal approval, and that would give us an opportunity to update the board on developments and things that we're seeing in areas. If something were to pop up that wasn't in the current plan, that was unexpected, we can have those conversations at that point. And with that, I think that might conclude our presentation if there are no questions, or if there are, now would be the time.
Nope, that's it. Great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to, and thank you, Shar.
You're welcome.
We're going to move to K2, project update, plan revisions for Monument Ranch K through 8 school. Mr. Payton, to introduce this item.
I'm going to ask Mr. Butler to switch over to the second presentation, and actually I'm going to turn this over to PGHM. Both Shar and Roberto will be presenting on the K-8 plans and some of the considerations and adjustments based on feedback from the committees. And I'll let Shar or Roberto take it away at this point.
Thank you. Let's see, Vince, can you go to the next slide? So we wanted to give you an update on where we've gone. So really the goals of our presentation is to provide an update of where we're at. And then also there were some requested design revisions, and we have some options to present that will be for your consideration and before we move forward with completing a design solution. But we are nearing completion with the code updates, which was part of what we referred to as the dust off of the plans. As Mr. Payton said, we've completed focus group meetings. We met individually with the food service folks, with Mr. Butler to discuss technology, with Mr. Parham on all of the maintenance and electrical and mechanical systems, and then a specific landscape meeting to really hear those folks' needs and how the existing plan could be improved upon based on experiences at your existing campuses. We have a slew of agency submittals that are ongoing. The City of Paris, we've reconvened with to discuss the offsite improvements, and we're continuing with conversations with them. Eastern Municipal Water District, we've submitted the required plans to them, and they're currently being reviewed. Local Fire Authority, Health Department, California Department of Education, will be making those submittals concurrently when we make the submittal to DSA. California Geological Survey, that's a requirement of DSA. It's the geotechnical report that gets submitted to them as part of the overall review, and that has been sent on up to Sacramento to them. And then Division of the State Architect, we're anticipating submitting in November based on the directions that we'll receive on some of the revision options. Roberto, do you want to add anything? City of Paris, I know you guys have met with several times. Do you want to add any comments about that?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, sorry. Yeah, we've had a couple of meetings with the City of Paris, and we're currently working with the Parks Department. So the Monument Ranch project along Monument Ranch Parkway has we're providing a new design entry on that side, and so there's an existing park that we're coordinating with the city parks. So we've already started that process, and we're also dealing with the city of Paris in terms of crosswalks on Ethernet. So we're trying to figure out what the best option is for providing some crosswalks for the development on the other side of Ethernet. So there's a couple of things that we're dealing with the city, and another thing too, Shar, is we're also dealing with the gas company, getting hookups on that, and we're also dealing with the power company. So that process has started, and it's something that our engineers are getting involved with. So it's an ongoing process. We'll get an update on the city of Paris here within the next couple of weeks.
Great. And then, so with that, we'll move on to the plan presentations. Vince, if you can advance the, oh, go back one. There we go. So this is the site plan. And what I want to just point out is there was, we had to reconfigure the drop-off lane to create a barrier between students being dropped off and cars that may be backing out of parking spaces. So there was a slight reconfiguration of the drop-off lane in the main parking lot. At the top of the page, you'll see notes on City of Paris offsite requirements, and there's the crosswalk indications that are being discussed with the city. What's important as students walk to school, Department of Ed requires that we get them safely onto the campus without them crossing across a drive approach. So placement of those crosswalks will be really important so that pedestrians can be directed into the campus without crossing in front of a parent turning in. Along Ethanac, we do need to put a sidewalk in. That would be along that the entire property line. The developer had brought a sidewalk up to, I believe, the end of the retention basin, but they didn't construct it along the school property. Also shown on the site plan near Building A, there we've added a security fence from the music classroom, and we added a delivery door to the food service area. In the lower right portion, you'll see the access road that Roberto was talking about that's coming off of Monument Ranch. And that's the area of coordination with the Parks Department on the existing park and how we're going to make the road connection there and put the landscape improvements back in. Next slide, Vince. This floor plan, we've identified, there's some revisions that were brought out to our attention during our meetings with the planning folks that we went ahead and incorporated them. One of them was relocating the health office where it was originally designed was at the front of the school. So we've actually swapped that with a conference room. That was a pretty easy swap. The workrooms that were designed in each of the classroom wings, we found that at Mesa View, they really weren't utilized to their full potential. So we repurposed those into be a more flexible space, and so that can be used for storage or workrooms that will make it a little bit more usable in each of the classroom wings. And then the food service was reconfigured. And Roberto, do you want to talk through some of the reconfigurations on the food service?
Yeah. So the food service, we had a meeting with the district, and they give us a lot of input in terms of the equipment they need and the type of service that they provide for this particular facility. So we reconfigured the serving area, and and talking to the district, found out that where the kids come in from and the whole flow of how that area works. So for the most part, that was the main part that got reconfigured, and you'll see that on our updated plans. But for the most part, it was just the serving area, and we shifted some stuff up from side to side. Just it works better the way we change stuff. So for the most part, it was just the main serving area for easier flow for the kids to come in from the exterior side, grab their lunch, grab all the stuff they need, and then be able to go out the NPR room.
Thank you, Roberto.
Mhm.
And then we've color coded and indicated some areas that we'll be talking a little bit more detail in, but the spaces that are clouded in red, at Building A, at the music room, there was a potential expansion requested to allow for more storage at that. So we'll present that in one of the next slides. The media center, there was a request to create more privacy and close it more to create an environment where students weren't walking directly through the media center. And then the other area, buildings G and E, which it was the upper classroom wing. We've got some options there to talk about how to accommodate the middle school programs, locker rooms specifically, and then also if budget doesn't allow to construct an alternate to perhaps construct building G at a later time. So if we can move to the next slide, I'll talk more about the Building A music room and the potential expansion there. So what we've shown here is on the left, current plan. This is how it's currently designed. The music room is just under 1,000 square feet, standard classroom size. It was requested that we add some square footage to be able to accommodate music equipment storage. So the plan labeled proposed change increases the size of the classroom by about 300 square feet. And we showed an example of an instrument type storage cabinet that could meet the district's needs for that request. So if the direction is to expand, there are some potential added construction costs just because of the added square footage. And at the end of the slide, I'll wrap up the various changes and potential costs. But that was the main request to enlarge the music classroom. And if we go to the next slide, are the media center revisions. Roberto, do you want to talk about those? I'm not trying to hog the microphone.
No worries. So the request again was to make the area more private because there was a lot of circulation during the day, and we opted for the proposed change on the right. You can see we're opting for this glass wall type of area that we can incorporate on two sides and kind of enclose the main media area from the circulation. Obviously, there is some cons and pros with this. It creates a little bit more of dead spaces. You can see there in gray versus on the right there on the left that this is more open where you can configure things like you want it, and this kind of creates the space. It limits the space to a smaller area now with these glass walls, but it gives you a little bit of more sound control if you're having some type of class that is accessing the media at a time, and you still have the circulation, you still have transparency between areas, and so I think we feel that this is the best option for if we want to go this route. And also there was a conversation we had about making the makerspace which you can see in the light green there. And so that was another conversation we had, that they needed the makerspace. And if we don't opt out for going to this glass wall option, we can still reconfigure the area to update for the makerspace.
And I would add that these, specific to this area, these are based on recommendations of when our committee visited Mesa View Elementary and talked with the librarian and talked with classroom teachers about that space and what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it, and the areas that were used more frequently than one another. And the area where you see makerspace identified now is something that would be utilized, whereas the current space isn't a highly utilized area right now. And so it makes better use of our available space, I guess, is what I would say.
And one of the other concerns was during book fair, there's really no way to secure the books because the library is open and is a thoroughfare. So that was part of keeping the noise down, being able to secure the area, and then also having the added makerspace. And we showed some examples of glass partitions. Not the final solution, but a solution, just to give you a visual of what could be there, so that you still have the light and the visual connection, but helps with the sound and traffic patterns.
Yep.
Okay, next slide. So this is in no particular order. I'm calling this locker room option 1. Because the school was originally designed without a locker room for a middle school program, we've come up with a couple of solutions. One would be to purchase modular facilities, and up in the upper left-hand corner of the site, where there's infrastructure plan there for future relocatables. So the thought was, if eventually the school would not function as a middle school program, to purchase modular locker rooms and restrooms and put out in the play yard area, makes a nice connection during PE, separates the students from the main buildings. The rooms identified in the green and the blue are currently designed the middle school science and art programs. They're in building G. So that is one option, providing that the budget allows for you to construct the entire campus all at once. Alternatively, assuming that you're able to construct the entire campus, is to convert 2 classrooms into locker rooms. And we've shown them identified here in building G. And this was done at Boulder Ridge when it went from being an elementary and served as the interim middle school while Ethan A. Chase was being built. So there, the locker rooms are still adjacent to the play area. A con there isn't really a restroom nearby. Students would need to, during PE, utilize the restrooms located in building E that are identified there in light blue. That is an option. Let's see, next slide, Vince. Should be option 2A. Slide number 7. So option 2A, this is assuming that the budget does not allow for the construction of building G. So that building would be deleted from construction. The area of that building, we're proposing decomposed granite go in that place. All of the utilities and infrastructure would be stubbed to that building so that future, it could be constructed without tearing up the entire site. This option 2A again proposes a modular locker and restroom facility out at the playground area. Next slide. And like the other one, this again proposes building G being deleted, the locker rooms and science, so the middle school program being relocated into building E. So this area for the lockers would be as adjacent to the play field as possible. Science building or science classroom identified there in green. Easier access to the restrooms without students, coming in all the way from the play yard. So that's option 2B. Let's see. The last slide 9, we just wanted to show if, assuming that someday building G would be constructed, if the locker solution were located in the permanent building there in building E, once the entire campus was built, then your locker rooms would be somewhat in the middle of the campus. Not that, that may not be ideal, but just a consideration and a thought. So I kind of went through that quickly. Be happy to take questions on those options. That's really one of the most important decision is how do we want to deal with the middle school program in a phasing scenario.
So Shar, are you taking comments or questions at this point?
Yes, please.
Just for me, I like the option where the portables were out, for locker room and restrooms by the PE, I guess, field.
I'll comment on one of the challenges with converting the locker rooms in from an existing classroom is as kids are dressing for PE and things, if they're around other classrooms, sometimes that can be distracting to people in class when they're so close together. And you also then have the cost of converting them back once they need to become a traditional classroom at some point in the future.
So then the portables, as one of those options, is cost conscious, I guess, and feasible for the students.
I think it is. Vince, can we go to the last slide, the cost summaries? So I'll skip to the locker rooms and then go back to the music room. The added modulars, there's a cost to purchase them of approximately $200,000. Included in the plans now is all of the infrastructure that needs to provide sewer and water, electricity. That's all been designed in already. So it's really that initial construction. It does give you flexibility at a time when that site may not be used for middle school anymore to relocate those locker rooms elsewhere and/or sell them. Excuse me, it's a tickle in my throat. It's not COVID. I don't think I've talked this much for 6 months. So just wrapping up the costs associated with the design revisions, adding approximately 300 square feet to the music room, just assuming that we use the straight construction costs. It's about $132,000 of added construction costs just because we're constructing more square footage. And then storage cabinets, as we depicted and what was requested to accommodate the program, would be about $30,000 more in storage equipment. And then the locker room options, the option 1A and 1B, assuming that the entire school is constructed in one phase. 1A, that added $200,000 to purchase the modulars. And then 1B, converting 2 classrooms. That's about, we estimated about $125,000 to create locker space instead of a regular standard classroom. Option 2, the phasing, eliminating building G could be a cost savings of about 4.4 million. And then adding, to add a modular restroom, assume, that's another the $200,000 we talked about, and converting the classrooms, 125,000. There's no added construction cost if the science room is relocated. It would be constructed in one place or the other. So there's really no added cost to move science. Consideration.
So Shar, for clarification, when you're talking about phasing, it's basically if we were in a situation where we couldn't fund the entire building of the school, then we would phase it much like Chase Middle School was phased in over a couple of year period.
Correct. So the entire campus would be designed. At bid time, we would have an alternate that would delete building G, so that when you're awarding the bids, you're able to, you have an option to meet your budget. I recommend that we bid it all because we might get lucky and have great construction numbers. We just don't know where we'll be in a bid climate. But having an alternate to remove that building, because you don't need all of those classrooms in the immediate future. So they could be phased back in later as enrollment continued to grow. Downside of that is when you add those back in, say you save 4.4 million at bid time, when you go to construct it, it's not going to be 4.4 million. It will be higher construction costs. It's a smaller project, cost inflation. So not without a crystal ball, we're estimating that it would be probably closer to 6 million to add those back in. But again, it's a matter of where construction numbers come in at bid time and the funds that you have in order to construct the school. Any questions on that?
Debbie, how do you want us to ask questions? You want us to page by page or take turns? I think you're muted.
Thank you, Gary. I think just to go ahead and speak because I can't see all of you. So if you, you can go ahead and proceed.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. I want to start on page 2.
Okay.
I'm looking at the cafeteria area. Those 4 squares, is that a shade structure where the kids eat?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so when they're done eating, where do they go play?
The playground, if you look at the site plan, page 1, they will need to disperse along the walk there near building E and G to get out to the playground.
Are there going to be external doors on these? It doesn't look like there's external doors. Is that correct?
There are external doors. Is that correct?
I don't see them on the plans. Well,
Yeah,
I don't see any doors.
There are external doors. So like Mesa View, there's external doors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how about windows on the outside?
There are windows on at the classrooms.
Okay. I'm sure that you've all thought about, the staff has thought about the supervision. Walking along that thoroughfare out to the play area, the amount of noise, et cetera, it's going to do to the classrooms. So that was my thought. Why I was just wanting to know why the cafeteria and the multipurpose room are closer to the front office and farther away from the play area. After they eat, they can go play without disrupting the rest of the school, or at least that wing.
The plan, when it was originally designed, is a reuse of the Mesa View and Boulder Ridge plan. So this is how the building best fit on this uniquely shaped site.
Okay. And I'm sure it's working okay at Boulder Ridge, so it's got to work pretty good here too. Because I'm remembering now how Boulder Ridge is, and the kids go around the side of the building to go play.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Okay. And tell me a little bit about the office space that you're designing for offices. What is the plan for the use of those?
In the administration building?
No, you have an office space in each of the 3 pods.
Oh, so those in the existing plan at Mesa View, those spaces were workrooms, teacher workrooms. What we learned when we walked this, when we walked the site is they're not using them as teacher workrooms, and it was shared that it would be much more usable if they could have some flexible office space. And so rather than create those to be teacher workrooms, we're just providing, we're removing storage casework and providing areas that could potentially function as badly needed office space.
I'll comment on that, Mr. Reller. It might be a space where your speech and language pathologist may service kids, where you would have, it's a big enough space where you wouldn't want large groups, but you could service, 1 to 3, 4, or 5 kids. Maybe it'd be a counselor, a speech and language pathologist, a mental health therapist, those kinds of spaces where we're not actually utilizing an entire classroom for those services, and they have a dedicated area for that to occur.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to page 3. Just one comment. Yes, definitely that extra storage space is needed, for sure. Let's go to page 4. How many square feet is that makerspace, and what is the plans to how to utilize that makerspace? What are you going to be putting inside there for students to use? And is the expectation that a class of 25 can be in there at a time, or what are the plans? Are the thoughts to build that in there?
Well, the square footage is just over 600 square feet.
I'm not sure, Mr. Reller, if you can kind of, I'll compare it to Mesa View. If you have that recollection in your mind, there's like a whiteboard and a couch area that goes kind of a lot of times unused. And so the feedback from the staff was they'd love to have that as a maker space where they could bring groups of kids in. Of course, what's in there would be determined by the principal when they're ordering things, and in conjunction with our curriculum and instruction department, so that we could provide, meaningful materials that are age appropriate for all of the ages in the school. And a lot of times kids think they're games, but they're actually not realizing that they're learning while they're playing games as well. And so we would put that list together as we got closer into the development of the school about what that would be stocked with.
So that would be used for elementary science and potentially middle school science as well.
That is correct. They
And it
could,
would
I
be-
mean, not science. They have their classrooms for their science. This might be, like they wouldn't necessarily go there to teach science. They might go there for a specific activity. I'll give you an example of like the virtual reality headsets, for instance, that I think a few years ago the board got to experience. And so we have a set in the library, a classroom set. And so those generally aren't, but I guess they could be checked out to the classroom, but that might be something where you might bring your class into that maker space and engage in that process. There may be specific activities that could be connected to your curriculum, but the materials are in the maker space rather than be in a classroom. So you may take your class in there for a unique learning experience and then go back to your classroom and continue your studies.
Okay. I just would hate for it to become a really nice storage area.
I
So
agree.
let's move to page 5. I do like the portable locker rooms. Go to page 7, option 2A. And 2B. Without building classroom G, can we handle the amount of what our projections are?
Yes, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, I believe the initial projections were around 675 students for the opening of the school. The capacity of this campus with all of the classrooms built is just over 1,000 students.
And if we don't build classroom G, are we still going to be holding 6, 7, 8 kids there?
Yes, it would still be a K-8.
But we would have to put a science classroom in building E.
What we would, so currently the science classroom is designed in building G. It would, so if building G wasn't constructed, then it would just be moved to that location in building E. And then when building G got constructed, you wouldn't, unless you needed a second science classroom, it could just be constructed as a standard classroom and leave the science classroom in place because of the extra casework and the chemical resin tops and those types of the casework provisions in a science room.
Okay, so of those, I like 2A. Just I'm putting my 2 cents in. Special ed classrooms, where are those at? And what are we prepared to handle with our special ed students? Are we prepared to handle RSP, SDC, SH? What are we prepared to handle in the design of this?
Well, we're prepared. We are prepared to handle our current programs. And so right now, for instance, our resource students, the vast majority of them are pushed into a general education setting and just pulled out for, the concept of least restricted and least restrictive environment. So they may need to come out for math support, but maybe pushed into a general education setting. A lot of kids are pushed in all day long. And so as we currently have it, they would fit in our existing classrooms, even for pullout services. And we would be okay. If we decided to, at some point in the future, you talked about SH kids, pull services back, that's more about furniture and the components inside the classroom more so than the 4 walls. And we don't see our capacity, at least at this time, to be able to do that, though we keep an eye on our capacity to do that in the future. And when that time is right, just like when we did with our last two programs, we pulled back, we would develop a plan to do so.
Okay. And just lastly, you know, every time we build a new school, I always ask about the SH program, because we never have built a school that can house a true SH program where we have I think that where we have restrooms, changing rooms, everything attached to the classroom, to where we can really service and support our most severely handicapped students that live in our attendance area. So that's why I always ask every building we build, because this one doesn't have it, and I don't think the others have it either. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct.
Okay. So I mean, after we build this school, I don't know how long it's going to be to where we build another one, but I always am an advocate for getting ready for having a facility that we can service our SH students. So awesome. Thank you, Debbie, for letting me answer all my questions, or ask all my questions. And thank you, Shar and Trevor, for answering them. And I'm very satisfied with that.
Thank you, Mr. Reller. Any other board member comments? So, Mr. Payton, does that conclude K2?
It does. That's the end. We'll be asking for, there'll be an agenda item later related to this that I'll explain when we get to it.
Okay. And Shar, did you want to add anything else, or?
No, just that we remain excited about getting this project, you know, submitted and approved and constructed, and you know, we'll look forward to keeping you all updated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I make one more comment, Debbie? Shar, did you guys change software? Because your drawings they're pretty nice.
Thank you.
It seems like you've upgraded something very detailed, and
we have really talented folks like Roberto and a team under him of these young folks that come out of college with incredible graphic skills. So thank you. Roberto deserves those kudos, not me.
No, we're all a team, so thank everybody.
Okay, thank you, Shar. We're now going to move on to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are approved in one motion. Do any board members have comments or questions? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Reller?
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz?
Aye.
Mr. Gary?
Aye.
Mr. Sperry? And I'm aye. Okay, we are on to action items. M1, approval of the Romoland School District Master Facilities Plan. Mr. Payton, to explain this item.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. This is just you saw the presentation earlier, and so we're asking the board if they would consider formally approving this plan with the intent of bringing it back on an annual basis.
Excellent. Do any board members have comments or questions?
Is this one requirement, Trevor, of the bond is to ensure we have a master plan?
We need to have that for some of our revenue streams, whether they be developer fees and things of that nature, but not necessarily for the bond.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor, Mr. Gary? Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye.
and Ms. Moon, aye. M2, authorization to incorporate modifications or plan revisions to the architectural plans for Monument Ranch K through 8 school. Mr. Payton to explain this item.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. Basically, what we're asking the board for tonight is, as you know, we're getting to the final stages of this, and we're asking for the board to authorize myself along with our planning committee to make any necessary modifications before final submittal. Of course, we don't anticipate anything major, and we would keep the board up to date on any minor adjustments that need to be made.
Do any board members have comments or questions? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I have one question.
Oh,
What-
sorry,
what
Ms.
type-
Reller.
What type of motion are you looking for? Because there's all kinds of options here.
Oh, Mr. Payton, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. This has to do with our DSA submittal. And so we've heard some feedback from the board tonight about preferences to things. Certainly not, we're not talking about, and Shar, you can chime in if I'm speaking incorrectly on this, but the phasing part isn't what we're talking about. It would be more about, I heard that the relocatable restrooms for and locker rooms for PE would be preferred. So we would look at putting those out there versus converting classrooms and any other minor adjustments that need to be done. I heard that the music room adjustments were necessary. The committee agreed. They're the ones that made that recommendation, of which 2 board members were part of that committee. And so it's those kinds of things to just finalize for DSA approval, not something as major as, oh, now we need to phase the project because the funds aren't there. That would be something we would obviously bring back to the board.
Correct. So it's really just giving us direction on the options. The phasing portion. So the phasing portion becomes a mechanism at bid time on whether or not your budget would allow for you to construct building G. But with that phasing option, you know, is the solution modular locker and restrooms versus converting classrooms? And then if the decision is to enclose that media center, just being able to work with Mr. Payton and the planning committee on what the final solution to create those, you know, if it's the glass panels or another solution, so that we can continue to design and receive direction as we advance the design options.
And I'll add an example of that. The panels that Shar was referring to with the media center library area, as we walked, you know, building a wall around that creates line of sight problems, and it makes it very unappealing, I guess, which is one of the reasons why we were trying to eliminate the distraction of noise, but yet allow natural light and the line of sight still across the room as appropriate. And if you remember on that graphic that she showed, I think the bottom panel is covered in a color and the glass is up higher for that design aspect, so that it doesn't seem so walled off from everything.
Thank you, Mr. Payton. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
A motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor, Mr. Geary?
One
Aye.
second. What are we approving? Again, there's a lot of options. You said you needed information on if we want to go with a larger, or is it just going to approve our discussions?
No, I think what they're, and Mr. Payton, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's making decisions, modifications based on the committee recommendations or teachers, just so they didn't have to come to the board for every single little thing. Of course, I'm imagining if it had anything to do with funds, it would come to the board, but I think just making minor modifications. Is that correct, Mr. Payton?
That was the intent of the description, is as we go to our next steps and our committees meet, PJHM needs to have some decisions made to complete the plans in time for a November submission. And knowing that typically we have monthly board meetings, I'm asking for permission for me to, and the committee with the committee's input, to give them that feedback that they need to keep the project moving forward for our November submittal.
So let me repeat what I think you just said, and from our previous discussion, what you reported. We like, in this motion, we like the increased music space. We like the walled off media center. We like the maker space. We like the portable locker rooms.
The
And I
flex
think
space,
that was it.
the flex spaces and the moving of the health offices behind the front desk, so students aren't moving out in front of the public area.
Okay. Okay, so those are the things that are included in this motion.
That would be correct.
Mr. Payton, could you clarify if that may include additional items? Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Sorry. We're not aware of any at this time. These are the things that the committee has met with, and when we walked Mesa View and walked other K-8 schools, these are the things the committee discussed in terms of plan revisions. And so if there were something that that the board hasn't heard before, then I would bring that back to the board.
Okay.
And I would like to
Mr.
make one final
ahead.
comment. Sorry. You know, that the desire that we talked about is this is a K-8 school which would potentially move to not a K-8 school. The planning and the infrastructure is being built with that in mind, if my memory serves me right. Is that correct?
Are you asking Shar or me, Mr. Reller? I'm not sure. Shard?
I'm sorry, Mr. Reller, the question was if the infrastructure is being planned to serve middle school?
If it is being planned, it's a K-8, and we decide at a later date we need a middle school on that side of the freeway, and we build a middle school, this can be converted, that middle school wing can be converted right to elementary school classrooms.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
thus the solution of portable locker rooms, being able to remove those if it becomes an elementary campus, provides more flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional comments or questions? We already have a motion to approve in a second. So all in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye.
and Ms. Moon, aye. M3, approval of 2020-21 45 budget revisions. Mr. Payton to explain this item.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. I'm going to ask Mr. Butler to put a short slide presentation up so I can reference the budget revisions as requested by Riverside County Office of Education. So now I'm transitioning into my role as CBO today for Ms. Cole. Mr. Butler, can you go ahead and advance that one bit? So Riverside County, they've asked us to all districts to do a 45-day revision since the board approved the budget in June, because 2 or 3 days after that approval process, Sacramento revised district budgets. And those things would be that they included the STRS and PERS assumptions, some learning loss mitigation funds, and updated cash flow. So you'll see that reflection of what you approved in June, and also how it looks currently with our budget revisions. Next slide, please. So you'll remember in June, the board approved our budget and we had assembled a finance committee to help us make some cuts based off of the May revise that the governor had put out. And with that, we were able to have a positive certification 3 years out, which is something that all districts strive to do. And you can see our ending fund balance. And from that June approval was about $4.7 million. And so that's what you approved in June. And now I will show you what it will look like based off of the revisions in Sacramento and the updated information that we have. So Mr. Butler, next slide. So based off of the new budget given to schools in our 45-day revisions, again, we'll have positive certification 3 years out. Our ending reserve goes from, I think that was 4.3 million on the last slide, to about 7.6 in 2023. And our assigned reserve goes down at the bottom, that bottom circle. We had about $11,000. That gets back up to about 3.3 million. I'm going to caution though, because we're still in economic uncertain times right now, with the economies being impacted with COVID closure. And I'm going to cite an example. So this year's budget, we're fine. When you look at 21-22 assumptions, which is our year 2 out, we don't know what that budget is going to look like based on the economy today. And the example I will give you is the same point, the Sacramento is taking in much less tax revenue currently than they did at the same points in time last year. And so we could see these budgets 2 years out be drastically different than they are understanding of them today, based on the economic uncertainties related to the economies being closed down because of COVID. So it's important that the board understand that. But again, the end game is that we have a positive certification, and that's what we want, with some uncertainties maybe happening in 2 and 3 years out that we need to have a reserve to handle. Any questions on that before we go to the next slide? Okay, slide then, Mr. Butler. So here's what changed, by the way, just in case you're wondering why the dollars went up. With the budget you approved in June, assumed a negative COLA instead we got a zero COLA, zero cost of living. So that's about another $2.5 million per year in those 3 years that you can see. And also we had some one-time funds called learning loss mitigation funds, which when you approved the budget in June was about 2.8 million, and that increased to 4 million. This would be, in past language, what we might know as somewhat restricted funds. These funds currently have to be spent on something that is considered substantially different than what our base program of operation is. And so we can't just use it for our normal operating expenses. And next slide, please. Many of the learning loss mitigation funds need, as it currently stands, need to be spent by December of 2020. That's halfway through this school year. And so we're looking to identify appropriate expenditures for that money. Some of the things we may have already done, but it would be better served being funded out of this pot of money. And then there's a little bit of a carryover. Some of it can be spent by September of 2021 and September of 2022. I will say that there is conversations in Sacramento of extending that December 30th, 2020 deadline of when the funds have to be spent. There's conversations that they may extend that out to June to allow it to be spent by the end of the school year. And we may be hearing an update anytime now on that, but we can't presume to know that the legislature will allow that to happen or not. And next slide. And then, of course, cash flow becomes important. So beginning with this school year, we have a $7.5 million cash balance. The state has deferred a lot of our money in our budget, which means we will not receive it in a timely manner. They will give us the cash at a later date. And that approach requires us and every district pretty much to be able to borrow money through what's called a tax revenue anticipation note. And right now, Riverside County Office of Education is working on a county-wide trans for districts so that they can borrow the appropriate amount of cash needed until those deferrals do come in from the state and then make our books balance. And we're expecting that around the March, April timeframe. And any questions?
Okay, if there's no questions, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Do I
And
have
I'll
a second?
second.
Oh, thank you. All in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry.
Aye.
And myself, Miss Moon, aye. M4, Resolution Number 1, 2020-2021, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Romoland School District establishing Community Facilities District Number 2020-2 Country View of the Romoland School District and Improvement Areas Number 1 and 2, therein authorizing the levy of special taxes and calling an election therein. Mr. Payton to explain this item.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. I'm going to describe M4 through M7 at once since they're all related to the same establishment of the same CFD. Earlier this evening, the board held a public hearing to receive comments from the public regarding our intention to levy taxes and issue bonds for CFD 2020-2 Country View. The next 4 agenda items consisting of 3 resolutions and an ordinance are the actual formation of the CFD and the levying of taxes. And with that, I will stop.
You're doing very well. Do any board members have comments or questions regarding this resolution? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
A motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye. Aye.
and Ms. Moon, aye. M5, Resolution Number 2, 2021, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Romoland School District acting as the legislative body of Community Facilities District Number 2020-2 Country View of the Romoland School District, determining the necessity to incur bonded indebtedness within improvement area numbers 1 and 2 of Community Facilities District Number 2020-2 Country View of the Romoland School District and calling an election therein. Mr. Payton already explained this item. Do any board members have comments or questions? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a
I'll make a
motion.
motion.
Thank you. We'll have Ms. Kleitz as a motion and Mr. Reller as a second. All in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye.
and Mrs. Moon, aye. So the resolutions that we have just adopted call for landowner elections within improvement areas number 1 and 2 of CFD number 2020-2, which are to be held at this time by the clerk. The school district has received from the sole landowner a waiver consenting to holding the elections this evening. The clerk is in possession of the ballots of the sole landowner within improvement areas number 1 and 2 of CFD number 2020-2 and will open the ballots now. Mr. Geary, would you like to read the ballots cast?
I don't have the ballot.
You don't? Okay. Ms. Thaxton, do you happen to have them?
I do. They're in the, Mr. Gary, they're in the information that was emailed to you as well. Do you have the script? Mr. Gary?
He's checking, I think. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Gary.
Oh, yes.
If you go to page, so if you go to item M5, and it's right where it has your name, the ballot information is there.
Okay, I got it. It says all ballots have been cast in connection with the election regarding the proposed formation of Community Facility District number 2020-2 countywide of the Romoland School District and improvement area number 1 and 2, and the election has now been closed. The results of said
Mr. Gary, we
The
can't hear.
results of said election were unanimous as follows. For improvement area number 1, 46 votes in favor of proposition A, B, and C, and in improvements area number 2, 26 votes in favor of propositions A, B, and C.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Having heard the statement of the clerk certifying the results of the voting on the propositions, I will entertain a motion to adopt the next item, M6. M6, Resolution Number 3, 2020-2021, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Romoland School District, acting in its capacity as the legislative body of Community Facilities District Number 2020-2, Country View of the Romoland School District and improvement areas number 1 and 2, therein certifying the results of the August 11th, 2020 special tax and bond election. Mr. Payton, do you need to add anything to this?
No, Ms. Moon, I think we just need to start a motion to vote on it from the board.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any comments or questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye.
and Ms. Moon, aye. M7, ordinance number 1, 2020-2021, ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Romoland School District authorizing the levy of a special tax within Community Facilities District number 2020-2, Country View of the Romoland School District and improvement areas number 1 and 2 therein. I believe this is still covered, Mr. Payton, with your previous, is that right?
It is. It's the last item under that previous description.
Okay, I just didn't want to take away anything from you. Do any board members have any comments or questions? And do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Kleitz. And all in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry, Mr. Sperry. You're muted. I'm sorry, Mr. Sperry.
I'm going backwards. I'm sorry. Aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Moon, aye.
Sorry, Gary.
Okay. M8, resolution number 4, 2020-21, transfers of appropriations for 2020, 2021. Mr. Payton to explain this item.
Thank you, Ms. Moon. This is a routine resolution that we do annually, which allows fiscal staff to transfer funds as appropriate throughout the year.
Thank you. Do any board members have comments or questions? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Thank
Second.
you, Mr. Red. Thank you. All in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye.
and Ms. Moon, aye. M9, Memorandum of Understanding, Romoland Teachers Association, RTA. Mr. Murray to explain this item.
Yes, this is an agreement between the district and the Romoland Teachers Association. The agreement addresses changes in working conditions for our certificated staff that are a result of the current COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, we recommend the approval of this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Do any board members have comments or questions? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, Mr. Geary,
Aye.
Mrs. Kleitz,
Aye.
Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Mr. Sperry,
Aye.
and myself, Ms. Moon, aye. Let's see. That is the end of our resolution. So closing comments. Mr. Geary, any closing comments? Okay, Mrs. Kleitz, any closing comments?
Really short, just want to thank the staff and administration for a start off on a very challenging year. We do appreciate that.
Concur. Mr. Reller, any closing comments?
I concur with Ms. Kleitz.
Mr. Sperry
Along with the others, thank you.
and myself, I wish everyone a most successful semester and staying positive as we all work together so everybody and our students are successful. And that's it. Our regular board meeting is adjourned at 8:21 p.m.